Hey y'all, it's Amanda, and today we are going to be planting out my pre-sprouted ranunculus for fall. Okay, so I started growing ranunculus several years ago and I failed over and over and over again. And the struggle I have is that here in Texas Zone 8, it gets really warm really fast in the spring, and ranunculus are cool weather blooms. So with that in mind, a few years ago, I started pre-sprouting my ranunculus in the fall, planting them out in the fall, overwintering them outside, and then they get an early jump when spring hits. And with that process, I've been able to grow quite a few ranunculus blooms in the month of March and April. Now, I gotta say, having failed multiple times with ranunculus, it is not a cheap bloom to grow. The corms are fairly expensive. I actually have a lot that I save and I dig up at the end of each season. Once the greenage, the foliage has died back, I'll dig up the ranunculus corms and I'll save them for the next season. And that has been a game changer for being able to grow these over and over again. Now this year I did add a few more varieties that we'll talk about later on, but let me show you what these corms currently look like. Okay, so we pre-sprouted them by soaking them and putting them in soil and then putting them out on my front porch in the shade. And you can see they've started putting off a lot of green sprouts. So basically we'll get in here, we'll dump all these out and pull some of these up to look. Looks like some had been more successful than others, although some of them might just be a little bit behind. I'm not necessarily looking for green sprouts. I'm really looking for white roots. That's what I really want. So these are all the ones that I have from last year. And this is really what I'm looking for. All these white roots growing. I really don't care about the green. It's really the white roots. So nice, firm white roots. If they're growing like that, then they are healthy and ready to go. Okay, with that in mind, last year I planted them in this bed right here, but I do like to mix things up. I don't like to plant the same things in the same place year after year. So we're going to shift this direction and we're going to plant ranunculus in this bed. So we're going to go ahead and get this bed prepped first. Okay, so I'm going to start by removing my fencing. I have this up for the armadillo that lives in my garden and likes to chew up my gardens. And he will especially love ranunculus corms. He will think that I just created a buffet for Thanksgiving for him. So we definitely have to protect these. All right, and this bed earlier this year had eggplant and lantana in it. And I really felt like the soil was looking really nice. Now I'm going to start by pulling up my drip irrigation and pushing it out of the way. And you might hear that little beep. That's a armadillo deterrent that he likes to ignore. I am not a violent person, but armadillo infuriates me. It's not my friend. All right. So I think this is going to be a little harder. Let me just flip that out of the way. That'll be a little bit easier. And I'm just going to start moving the soil around, kind of checking it out, seeing what I got going. I definitely need to replenish this soil. Ranunculus are very heavy feeders. So it is important that let's get that root up. All right, there is eggplant root. It's very important that I replenish this soil because it definitely produced a lot this year. I had my eggplant here and they did wonderfully. Even though I've decided not to, I know all y'all are like, Amanda, you're back. I'm using my legs, I promise. Even though I'm not going to grow this particular variety anymore, which is the Black Beauty, it did produce a ton. Look at that. Wow! Look at that plant. Okay, we're gonna start by adding compost to this. Okay, and this compost is Living Earth. Organic compost. Living Earth is local to my area, but I can get this compost at Lowe's, which is really great. And yes, I'm putting a whole bag of compost on this bed. And it smells ripe. So I'm just gonna come through, not really wanting to like overly disturb the soil. And truthfully, one of the things I like to do is I like to top dress with compost just like this. And then I let all the worms and insects and that kind of stuff draw the soil down into the soil underneath. Now, this way south, this bed gets full sun all day, which is going to be essential for ranunculus in zone 8, especially if I'm overwintering them, because they cannot freeze. If they freeze, they will turn to mush. So having an area where it's nice and warm and gets plenty of sun will help them along the way. I will have to cover these if I get any deep freezes. All right, let's go ahead and put our drip lines back in place and we'll go from there. Okay, I'm gonna start with my new varieties from this year. Now, ranunculus corms are typically planted about 2 inches deep, about 6 to 8 inches apart. I tend to plant mine a little bit closer than that, but that's just me. So I do have these labeled. So basically, I think I'm gonna put the label in the center and then put the coordinating ranunculus around it. And I'm really just gonna come in and lift up carefully with these. And I'm gonna pull up just this first one, which is called White Tomer. And then I'm gonna go through and see what I have. So I do see some rotted ones, so it looks like their White Tomer just did not do as well as others did. Oh yeah, okay. Definitely looks like all the White Tomer rotted, which is interesting because I've grown it multiple times before without any issues. All right, so we actually don't have any White Tomer to plant at this point. They all rotted. So just toss that out. All right, boom. But this next one I've got, this romantic mix, looks real good. So that's exciting. So I'll go ahead and put that in. And you can see it has all the little green shoots coming up. So basically I'm just gonna come in, give it a little shake and locate my corms and then go ahead and start placing them out to be planted. You can see, look at those nice roots. They're very happy. Got those focused right around there. Then I'm gonna go ahead and switch to my pink Tomer. I don't see a lot of success from the Tomer series. I see a lot of rot for them, which is sad. Yep, there's more rot. So Tomer series didn't do as well. Don't think I'm gonna have many of those. Or at least so far, it didn't do as well. Yeah, very little in the Tomer series. All right, next is Marshmallow. And I remember on Marshmallow, there weren't as many of those. I'm just gonna go finish going down this row, and then I'm gonna plant these, and then go to the next area back. Anything that's rotting, I'm throwing out. Which is, I mean, that happens a lot with ranunculus. And then the next group I'm gonna do is Tecolote Merlot. They're looking really good. Quite a few of the Tecolote Merlot look good. Okay, all right, next thing I want to do is I'm just going to take my hori-hori knife and dig down a couple of inches, nestle it in, and we're good to go at that point. And you should see a little bit of the green shoots if you're at the green shoot phase. And of course the soil is nice and soft because we just topped it with compost. Just going through and making sure that I didn't miss any. Looking carefully because of course they blend in beautifully with the soil. Now I don't have a lot of space. I don't have a massive garden. So I really like to pre-sprout, like what we just did, in order to be able to make sure that I'm utilizing my space as best as possible. I don't want to plant a bunch of corms that rotted and then took up a good chunk of my space. So all these that I'm planting, I know that they're going to do well because they've already sprouted. The romantic mixed ranunculus is a blend of softly hued blooms in corals, pinks, and salmon tones, giving a romantic palette. It grows 12 to 15 inches tall and prefers full sun with well-draining soil and is hardy in zones 8 through 11. The marshmallow ranunculus feature large double blooms in soft blush pink tones with strong stems ideal for cutting. At about 10 to 15 inches tall, it thrives in full sun with excellent drainage and is hardy in zones 8 through 11. Tecolote Merlot ranunculus boasts rich wine purple, fully double blooms ideal for cutting. It grows 12 to 16 inches tall with strong, upright stems, prefers full sun and fertile soil, and is hardy in zones 8 through 11. Tomer purple ranunculus displays deep purple, peony-shaped blooms on compact plants. It stays around 10 inches tall and is great for pots and front borders. It requires full sun and is hardy in zones 8 through 11. All right, I'm just checking over the top to see if I see any that are sitting on the surface, but it looks pretty good. So the whole front portion of this is all new varieties. Whole back portion is corms that I lifted from the past, and they're all just mixed up. All right. So it's really important to water them in really well because you want the soil to settle around the roots. Oh my God. There you go. So I'm actually using my soaker. So that'll do a better job. I'm just doing a little bit at a time. After I water them this time, I have them set up on a drip irrigation where they'll get watered. Right now they're getting watered like every 3 to 4 days. Once we get to winter, we'll probably definitely go 4 days. And this is really exciting. It's planting at this time of the year. It's always very interesting to me because it's a promise of spring. What's to come for spring. This will be the most ranunculus I've ever planted. I think that if these do well and I end up harvesting a bunch of these, I'm going to have to move them to a larger bed next year. This is a 3x6. I think I'll definitely have to go up to one of my 4x8s. But that's okay because I like to move my stuff around. Helps with disease and pests if they don't know what to expect. And you can see just a very few green leaves, green sprouts poking up through the soil. Okay, that felt good. Very excited to get those out. I planted them a little bit later than usual because we've had an abnormally warm fall. And so I typically plant them towards the beginning of November, and we're to the middle of November, but that's fine. I could plant these, I think, all the way up to the end of November, and that would be fine. Now let's talk about watering and aftercare from this point on. Water in deeply to settle the soil around the roots. That's what we just took care of. And keep the soil evenly moist, but not wet during growth. Ranunculus corms can rot very easily. So if you get some rainstorms during the winter or things like that, make sure you turn your irrigation off so they're not getting overly watered. I think this is one of the reasons a raised bed works really well for ranunculus for me, because it's easier for the water to drain out. And my native soil is clay, which does not drain very well. So ranunculus by far do better for me in raised beds. You can also mulch lightly with compost or straw to retain moisture and suppress weeds. I don't typically do that because I technically top dress with the compost, which works just fine. And you do want to protect them from hard freezes. Frost cloth or row cover if temps dip below 28 degrees for longer than a few hours. They're warm enough in the ground. If you hit freezing temps, the temperature is not, the ground's not frozen, so they're fine. It's the elongated freezing temps. When we get below 28 degrees for more than 2 to 3 hours, I think it's important to go ahead and put frost cloth on them. Quite frequently, I'll put incandescent Christmas lights on top of them and then put the frost cloth on top of that. And those incandescent Christmas lights can grab you a degree or two, especially if we get to below 25 degrees, which starts to be a little tougher. What I've found is even though we have some harsh freezes that pop up from time to time here in Texas Zone 8, I might lose a few of the ranunculus corms towards the outer edges of the garden bed, but towards the center, if I protect everything with the frost cloth, the center ones do just fine because that soil stays nice and warm. All right, and then finally you can fertilize every few weeks. Once the leaves are up, my leaves will start probably popping up pretty soon anyway. I don't typically fertilize during the winter, but come February, into February, I will start fertilizing at that point because we're getting prepped for blooms, which is so incredibly exciting. I did want to also point out that consistent watering really helps prevent deformed blooms. If you find that your ranunculus have deformed blooms come spring, that typically is because they had some dry spells that they did not like, and that messed with the growth of the blooms. So having them set up to drip irrigation is a lifesaver. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today. Let me know if you've tried fall planted ranunculus, or if you were in a colder area, let me know if you do ranunculus in early spring in your area. Like I said, my particular zone 8 here in Texas, we get too hot too fast. In April, we'll be hitting the 90s. And that is just way too hot for ranunculus. Once it gets about 80, the ranunculus don't like it anymore. So starting this method has worked amazingly. I have harvested hundreds of blooms each season, and I've just really, really enjoyed the process. There's nothing like a ranunculus bloom. It's so unique, couture, and beautiful. So it's definitely worth a try. All right, you all, if you're like me and you're on a gardening journey and you want to do that with some gardening friends, check out my Patreon community. The link is in the video description below. There's a free tier that you can join in under, and there's one paid tier. The paid tier is called Certified Mad Gardener, and with that paid tier, you get access to everything, including lives, which we're actually having a live this Thursday coming up, as well as exclusive videos, group chats, and photo sharing. All right, you all, as always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.